That was like an intermission moment.
Yeah.
And up, took a little breath, sing a little song.
Yes.
Whoa, so much good information.
So for those that lost us for a second, maybe I could read the question again, and we could start there again. So the question was, I would love to hear more about your journey of connecting to the earth, including thoughts on being non-indigenous to a place, as most of us are on Turtle Island. What acts connect you most to the earth, and has that played a healing role in your life?
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, regathering my thoughts. One is just, I think that just honoring the fact that my ancestors were of the earth. I mean, my pre-slavery ancestors were of the earth. And then also my ancestors who are on this land, or who were brought to this land, were also of the earth. They had no option but to be, right? Because of the nature of slavery, the nature of the times, the nature of what it meant to be resilient and to survive, despite the harsh and violent times and situation that they lived in. So I've always grown up with a deep reverence and connection to the land. My mom was a sharecropper. She's 79 years old, so she grew up in a Jim Crow South, sharecropping. So one thing I always grew up with was how to grow food, and one thing that I always grew up with was if you can grow your own food, then you can survive. You can survive no matter what happens. And I know that that is knowledge passed down to her, right, from her ancestors. Her grandfather was born into slavery. And so I know that idea of independence and survival and resilience comes like passed down through the DNA. And so for me, what I find most healing is that connection to the land, that no matter what is going on, no matter how many headlines are popping up about them killing my people, no matter how heavy this burden of white supremacy gets on my back, like I know that I have this DNA, right, which tells me that I am part of the earth and that the earth is part of me, and that we give and we take and we love and we nurture each other. And that as long as I can keep that connection and keep that reverence and hold the land sacred, then I can work towards liberation for myself, but I can also work towards liberation for my community and for my people. And so one thing that I've always held close is like, you know, like herbal medicine making is something that I've just always kind of had, right? And it's never been like, it's so funny because like now we call it like, we're like medicine makers or healers, but I never grew up with that. I just grew up with an inherent distrust of the medical system because of being Black, right? And what the medical system has done to us, and the knowledge that there are plants and herbs on this land that will heal me better than a doctor can, you know? And so I've always held that close, always held close the idea of growing my own food and nourishing myself with plants from the earth. Yeah, I don't know. Does that answer the question?
think that answers it really beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Rikki has a question for you. Something that came to mind along those healing and grounding practices is I know that you also act as a doula for many people, which I think is a beautiful part of your story. And I guess I would ask, how has your experience as a doula played into the compassion and empathy that you clearly wield and are offering in service to the communities that you've been facilitating these accountability discussions with, and how does being a doula, what has it taught you about these issues?
Yeah. One, I just, whenever I talk about birth work and being a doula, I always have to honor those before me, right, who did this work, like who caught the babies, who helped the babies be born, who helped the babies survive even under an oppressive and violent system. And so that's what drew me to it. So my grandmother was what we would call a granny midwife. So she basically caught babies in the American rural South. And when we say catch babies, we mean a person who's literally helping babies be born. And she was never like certified. She never had a degree, anything like that. It was just something that she knew how to do. Again, when I talk about ancestral knowledge and knowledge in our DNA, it was just something that she knew how to do, was to help babies be born, help them come to this earth, and help them survive. And so I always kind of thought that, like, I wanted to somehow be involved in the revolutionary practice, right, of continuing the lineages of marginalized and oppressed people. Because I always saw it as an act of resistance and an act of revolution. To be a Black person or a brown person or a poor person or an indigenous person living in a country under a system that kind of works and it was created to kill you, essentially. And to say, like, no, you're not going to get rid of me. In fact, not only am I going to survive, but I'm going to bring babies into the world who are going to survive. And not only are they just going to survive, they're going to learn, they're going to grow, they're going to love, and they're going to change the world, right? And so I hold the practice of birth work incredibly sacred, because I see that, like, every time a baby is born, I just see endless potential and endless hope, right, for the world in which they will contribute to, and the world in which they will create change in. And so currently I'm really blessed in the fact that I mostly serve parents of color and brown, Black, Indigenous parents. And then the people who are not parents of color that I serve are usually drawn to me because they understand, like, my personal stance on a lot of things. So if they are white parents, generally speaking, they're in line with my beliefs and how I hold birth, my beliefs about birth, and my beliefs about society. And so I've been really blessed in that. And so for me, being able to aid in the creation of life and to bring a new spirit earthside is an incredible and sacred honor, but it's also it's also, I want to say, like a prayer of reverence to those who did it before me, and those who saw me get here and saw my mom get here and saw her mom get here and all of that. And also just tapping into that spiritual and ancestral knowledge is just like, it's just transcendent. You know, in the moment that a baby is born, or in the moment that I'm with a parent and we're talking about the work that they're going to do, and the beautiful work that they're going to do, it transcends. Like, for a moment, we are both able to transcend this system, right? We're talking about something that exists beyond the constructs of this system. And so it's beautiful. It makes my heart explode. It like it elevates me. It just, like, talking about birth, as you can see, just like it just fills me up, and I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed by the opportunity to get to do this.
I really, really love that. Obviously, it has a lot to do with your passion and the love that you show. Yeah, Rikki, do you have any questions you'd like to bring up? Any thoughts?
I've just really, really appreciated how candid and willing you've been to share with us. I know that it's a really challenging time to be able to express things like that. And even the concept of hope or like being blessed is like, to me, it feels hard in this time to really access those places, because there's so much collective grief going on, that to bring in hope or blessing it feels nuanced, and I feel like you've done it in a way that is just really impactful. And I almost feel like in my mind, what doulas do is they're the permission givers, like permission to transform, to really like make the changes that you know that you need to do. I think about, birth doulas, obviously kind of having a connection with a little baby spirit, and then just being like, okay, this is your time to come, and like really being comfortable with that like invitation. And I also think about like death doulas, which I think are less talked about, but there is this kind of an equally role to be like, you have permission to let go of life or whatever harmful or toxic patterns you are exhibiting. And I feel like right now there's this kind of simultaneous like collective death happening, and that's my hope, that it's like a death of really terrible systems that have been in place and assumptions, and they live in all of us, like the white supremacy and capitalism.